In the climate-controlled archives of Galveston's Rosenberg Library lies an auction ledger most visitors never notice. Leather-bound, faded, unremarkable at first glance. Thousands of names fill its pages, ages, prices, brief physical descriptions. Human lives reduced to ink. But one entry stands apart. December 1859, lot number handwritten, then crossed out. A second number scribbled beside it. No name at first, just a note. Sale delayed, buyer withdrawn after examination. This alone was unusual. Slave sales rarely stopped once scheduled. But what followed was something else entirely. An attached packet, multiple pages, written by different hands, different dates, different locations. Every page warned the same thing. This man was not dangerous because of rebellion, not because of violence, not because of escape attempts. He was dangerous because he understood. In 1859, Galveston was booming. Second only to New Orleans in the Gulf slave trade, the city processed thousands of enslaved people each year. Cotton from inland Texas flowed outward. Human beings flowed inward. Warehouses along the Strand district doubled as auction houses. Buyers arrived by steamboat, wagon, horseback. Texas had only been a state for 14 years, but slavery here was expanding faster than anywhere else in the South. Planters didn't want thinkers. They wanted efficiency, obedience, predictability. And anything that disrupted that equation was quietly removed. The man, eventually listed as Elias, arrived without a clear origin. No birth record, no plantation history beyond fragments. Estimated age, late 20s. Strong, healthy, no scars of punishment. But auctioneers noticed something unsettling. He watched everything, not nervously, not submissively, precisely. When questioned, he spoke carefully, clearly, without dialect. Texas law did not forbid slaves from speaking well, but it feared what came with it: education, memory, comparison, understanding. The earliest verified record places Elias on a tobacco plantation in eastern Virginia. This matters. Virginia tobacco agriculture required precise timing, crop rotation, and soil chemistry knowledge, subjects discussed in agricultural journals of the time. Slaves were not meant to read them. Elias didn't need to. He listened, watched, remembered. Within months, he corrected overseers about harvest timing, predicted mold outbreaks, identified drainage flaws. Every time, he was right. The owner sold him south. Not because he failed, because he knew too much. By the mid-1800s, intelligence itself had become a liability for enslaved people. After Nat Turner's rebellion in 1831, Southern states quietly reshaped their laws. Literacy bans spread rapidly. In Virginia, Alabama, Mississippi, and Texas, teaching an enslaved person to read or write could result in fines, imprisonment, or worse. But the law had a flaw. It could punish teaching. It could not punish memory. Elias never held a book openly. He absorbed information indirectly, overheard conversations, ledgers left unattended, sermons spoken aloud, instructions shouted across fields. Knowledge traveled faster than laws could stop it, and plantation owners noticed. Elias did not challenge authority. He did something more dangerous. He revealed incompetence. Overseers resented him. Owners feared him. Within 2 years, Elias was sold twice, each time farther south. By 1857, Elias arrived in New Orleans, the largest slave market in North America. Here, people were sold not just for labor, but for specialization: carpenters, dock workers, accountants, craftsmen. New Orleans tolerated intelligence more than rural plantations, but only to a point. Elias worked briefly in a cotton brokerage warehouse, tallying shipments under supervision. The owner noticed discrepancies, errors Elias corrected without being asked. At first, it was impressive. Then it became unsettling. Elias understood contracts, shipping schedules, insurance clauses, things enslaved men were never meant to grasp. The broker sold him within weeks. But this time, something changed. He included written warnings. The steamboat carrying Elias northward along the Mississippi encountered trouble near Baton Rouge. Low water, shifting currents. The captain and navigator argued over calculations. Charts conflicted. The margin for error was small. Elias listened. When he finally spoke, he did so quietly. He identified the correct depth by estimating flow rate, time since rainfall upstream, and vessel displacement. No instruments, no charts, just reasoning. The captain tested him, gave him numbers. Elias solved them instantly. The ship arrived safely. The captain submitted a statement before Elias was sold again. Not out of kindness, out of fear. Texas in 1859 was different from the Deep South. Newer plantations, bigger land grants, fewer social restraints. Planters believed they could manage anything, even intelligence. Elias arrived in Galveston with documentation thicker than most sales contracts. Auctioneers debated privately whether to suppress it. They didn't, because suppressing it had consequences. If a buyer discovered the truth later, reputations would be destroyed. So they disclosed everything and watched buyers walk away. This was not charity. This was market logic. A slave who could calculate escape routes, understand laws, and predict outcomes was not an asset. He was instability. December mornings in Galveston were usually busy. Planters gathered early, checking teeth, hands, posture. Bidding was competitive. Prices were predictable. But when Lot 61 was announced, the room changed. The auctioneer described Elias carefully: age, strength, health, then paused and disclosed the documentation. Buyers shifted. Some laughed nervously. Others stopped reading halfway through. One man folded the papers and left. Another shook his head slowly. Elias stood still on the platform, chains loose, expression neutral. Not fearful, not hopeful. Observing. The opening bid was lowered. No response. Lowered again. Finally, a single hand rose. The buyer was Thomas R. Bellamy, owner of a mid-sized inland plantation, known for efficiency, not cruelty, a believer in systems. Bellamy saw what others missed, or thought he did. A slave who could optimize labor, reduce waste, increase profit. He waved away the warnings, paid $350. A bargain. As the sale closed, the auctioneer noted something unusual. Bellamy did not smile. Neither did Elias. Crosswind Plantation operated like a machine. Detailed logs, scheduled rotations, minimal violence. Bellamy believed control came from structure. Elias was assigned indoor labor, repairs, inventory, maintenance. Within days, Bellamy noticed improvements. Supplies lasted longer. Work crews moved faster. Mistakes disappeared. Bellamy began asking questions, then waiting for answers, then relying on them. And something shifted. Elias never overstepped, never advised unless asked, which made it worse. Bellamy realized the truth late at night, reviewing ledgers Elias had corrected. He had not taught Elias anything, yet Elias understood everything. Markets, logistics, risk. Bellamy felt something unfamiliar. Not anger, not fear, but displacement. A system only works when everyone believes their position is natural. Elias made that impossible. And Bellamy knew, quietly, clearly, this could not continue. By early 1860, Crosswind Plantation was more productive than ever, and more unstable than it had ever been. Overseers noticed Bellamy consulting Elias before making decisions, not ordering, asking. Whispers spread. Other enslaved workers watched carefully. Nothing Elias did was rebellious, but everything he represented was. Slavery depended on distance, intellectual, social, moral. Elias collapsed that distance simply by existing. Bellamy began sleeping poorly. He found himself defending Elias's logic in conversations with other planters, then avoiding those conversations altogether. In late February 1860, abolitionist literature began circulating through Gulf ports. This was real history. Pamphlets printed in the North moved quietly through sailors, dockworkers, missionaries. One reached Crosswind. It did not call for violence. It argued something more dangerous, that slavery was economically inefficient, morally indefensible, intellectually dishonest. Bellamy confiscated it from Elias, but the damage was already done. The arguments mirrored thoughts Bellamy had been avoiding for weeks. Manumission in Texas was legal but restricted. Freed slaves were required to leave the state within 90 days. Failure meant re-enslavement. Social consequences were severe. A planter who freed slaves risked isolation, economic retaliation, suspicion of abolitionist sympathy. Bellamy consulted his attorney in secret. The documents were prepared quietly. No witnesses, no celebration, just paperwork. When Bellamy told Elias he would be freed, Elias did not react immediately. No relief, no gratitude, just understanding. Bellamy expected resolution. What he felt instead was exposure. He freed one man, one. The contradiction remained. Elias left Crosswind on foot, carrying papers that proved his freedom, and how fragile it was. Bellamy watched him disappear down the road, and realized something irreversible had begun. Freedom in 1860 Texas was not safety. Elias carried manumission papers that legally defined him as free, yet every mile he walked placed him in danger. Any white citizen could challenge his status. Any local authority could delay him long enough for the law to turn against him. Freedom existed only on paper. He traveled cautiously, avoiding main roads, taking temporary labor where possible, never staying long enough to attract attention. In river towns and port cities, enslaved and free black people lived under constant suspicion. Slave catchers did not always care whether a person was legally free. Profit rarely waited for verification. Elias understood this. He planned every movement. Not emotionally, logically. As Elias moved northward, the nation itself was coming apart. By the spring of 1860, the political divide over slavery was no longer theoretical. Newspapers carried open threats of secession. Militias drilled openly. Abolitionist and pro-slavery violence escalated across state lines. Elias passed through regions where the law changed every few miles, but prejudice did not. He worked briefly near river docks, assisting with logistics and cargo calculations. His skill earned him quiet respect, though never public acknowledgement. A black man could not be seen as indispensable, only useful, temporarily. By late summer, Elias crossed into territory where slavery was no longer legal, but danger remained. Elias disappears from official records shortly after. No census lists him by name. No property records survive, but fragments remain. Shipping manifests corrected in unfamiliar handwriting. Personal journals referencing a man who calculated faster than machines. Anonymous notes preserved in abolitionist collections. Historians debate whether these fragments refer to the same individual, but the pattern is unmistakable. Wherever Elias went, systems became visible, and systems do not like being seen. History remembers rebellion. It remembers violence. It remembers names that fit narratives. What it struggles to remember are contradictions. Elias did not revolt. He did not lead others. He did not attempt escape through force. He simply demonstrated, quietly, relentlessly, that the logic used to justify slavery could not survive contact with reality. That was enough. Plantation owners sold him. Traders warned each other. Records became vague. And eventually, he vanished. Not because he failed, but because remembering him would require admitting something uncomfortable. That slavery was never sustained by ignorance alone. It was sustained by denial. And denial collapses the moment understanding is allowed to exist.